Hi, it's Sherry from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to share with you a fun tutorial for a really cute patchwork pouch. There are quite a few different options in the pattern. It is a free pattern from Moda Fabrics, and I do have some tips and tricks. I've already made 3. So I do have some tips and tricks to share with you, and I hope you'll enjoy making this great little pouch. Okay, as I mentioned, I've already made 3 of these fun pouches. The first one I made using Camille Ross Kelly's Nantucket Summer collection. This is the collection that the pattern was designed with and for, and I just had a little kit that I had received from Moda, and it had a really cute little swoon mini charm, and so I made it exactly like the pattern. The only thing I didn't do was you can add a D-ring into these little side loops if you want. I didn't do that. The other thing I did differently was I used Soft and Stable for all 3 of my pouches. They have the pattern written. You can use batting when you quilt, or you could use a fusible fleece, but I really like Soft and Stable. This is kind of a big package of it. It's a 72 by 58 package. You can get it in much smaller packages as well, but I usually buy a large piece of it and then just cut it up as I need it for projects. But I've got a little piece of it here just to kind of show you. It's kind of similar to I don't even really know, but it's thicker than a batting and it's thicker than a fusible fleece, and it washes really well. And it's easy to quilt on, and I just feel like it gives a little bit more body to what I'm working with. So I did use the Soft and Stable for all 3 of my pouches. The other thing I did differently with one of them that I will do for the rest of them is I used a different zipper. For my Nantucket Summer pouch, I used just a traditional polyester zipper with the little zipper, tag that I mentioned attached to it. And I also did that with my pouch that I used my Emma collection fabrics. I just had a green polyester zipper that just seemed to really coordinate with the greens in that collection, and so I used that. But when I made my pouch with our Seashore Dry fabrics, I decided to use a by Annie zipper, and I love these zippers. They are a little bit wider. I'm going to just hold that up so you can see. And with this pattern, I feel like with the smaller zipper, you don't have a lot of room to open your pouch. And for some reason with this larger zipper, it's just wider. It just makes it easier to open the pouch. It gives you a little bit more space. I'm just going to show you, her zippers you can buy them individually in double slide or single slide. This one is actually a 30-inch double slide, and you could make 2 pouches with it because it has 2 zipper pulls. You could cut it in half and make 2. She also sells zippers by the yard, and so you can pick out a fun color and you can cut it to the length that you need, and she adds in all of the pulls that you need. So, and yeah, this is just one that I had in my scrap bin that I had left over from another project, and I just love these zippers. So I am really going to recommend this zipper. The other thing I was going to point out, I did forget to put the little tabs when I made the Emma pouch, and so I am going to be looking for a little zipper pull to put on here. But when you use the by Annie zipper, these zippers have a larger hole on the pull, and you can make a cute little fabric pull, which just makes it so easy to open and close. And I did a quick little video showing how to make one of these pulls, so we'll link that video. It's just really, really simple. One thing I did want to mention before we get started is that the pattern, which is a free PDF download from Moda Fabrics, I'll have the link on my blog, you can go to get the link. The pattern gives you 3 different options for your patchwork. For one of the options, and that's what I did right here, you use 40 different mini charm squares. So basically, if you have a mini charm pack, you use all of the squares, and the pouch is completely patchwork. And I did my Seashore Drive pouch that way as well. There are two other options that you have. This one, you just do 3 rows of the patchwork squares, and then you have larger pieces of fabric on the end. And so that's what I did for my Emma collection. And that one actually, I'll actually show you my quilted one right here. That is what this one looked like. So it was just 3 rows of the patchwork squares and then a strip of fabrics on either end. And so this one was the gray. When I did these two, it was just all patchwork squares, a 5x8 grid of the patchwork squares. But the third option on the pattern, and it's actually the cover photo, you actually just do 2 rows of patchwork squares, and you have one smaller strip on one side and a larger strip on the other side. And that's going to give you kind of just like an offset pouch where you do have the bigger fabric right here. So you have 3 different options. And by doing it this way, by making one of the smaller options, you can actually get more than one pouch out of your charm pack, mini charm pack. Okay, the next thing I wanted to mention, the pattern is really well written. The only thing I would suggest is they have you trimming your either your batting or your soft and stable and your pouch lining. They have you trimming them to the same size as your patchwork panel, which you put together according to the directions in the pattern. Just simple sewing. But I really think it's better if the batting, soft and stable or fusible fleece, and the backing are a little bit bigger. I'm just going to show you why, because it just, when I do go ahead and quilt this one, I just cut this panel for the lining about an inch larger on all of the sides. And I will cut the soft and stable the same size as this lining. That will just make it easier when you're quilting in case anything shifts. You can use a spray basting if you want, if you're using soft and stable or batting to help it not shift. I just don't like to add that glue into there. If you use the fusible fleece, that is the one time you probably wouldn't need to cut these bigger, because you actually fuse that. It has a little glue on it, and you would actually fuse that to your top piece. It wouldn't fuse to both sides, but I feel like you could cut the fusible fleece the exact same size as your top and then just cut your lining fabric a little bit bigger. Anyway, just a few tips just to make sure. Once you're done quilting your piece, and I have this one is all quilted. Okay, we're just going to do a close-up shot here, and I'm going to show you how I quilted this pouch and kind of talk about it. And actually this one is the same layout as this one, and so, but I actually added a little bit extra quilting here. I quilted on either side of the seam lines where the patchwork squares were going, just in this one direction. And then I also quilted in the end pieces, just straight lines. Now I didn't do any quilting on the end pieces for this pouch, and it's fine, but I think I'm going to like this one a little bit better. So I was just having fun while I was making these different versions and experimenting, and I think this will be the way that I will do it from now on. For this one, I'll probably do the exact same thing, just do straight lines in the end spot. So, and that's actually how it's shown on the pattern. Now, after you finish quilting, you will trim the soft and stable or whatever you used for your lining middle and your lining fabric. Trim everything up and then just sew 1/8 of an inch around the edge on all 4 sides. Okay, so I'm moving to step on page 3 to the section of the pattern that says create the top box corners. And what the pattern tells you to do is on the lining side to mark a square in each of the corners that measures 1¼ inches by 1¼ inches. And so I've just got a ruler, and I'm just going to use a pencil. It's on the lining side, and I'm going to mark those squares in each of the 4 corners. And the last one. Okay, then you're actually going to take some scissors and you're going to cut those squares out. And so I'm just going to cut right on my drawn lines. And you're going to cut those squares right at the beginning. Okay, so those 4 squares that you've just cut, you can just throw those away. The next thing the pattern tells you to do is to fold it in half with the lining side facing out and press it really well. And so you can use your iron. And this is because later this is going to be the kind of the bottom middle of the bag. What I found though is that if my patchwork seams are also right in that spot. So I'm not sure if you need that, because you'll be able to use this line. But if you were just using one piece of fabric, I can see where that would be really, really beneficial. Okay, the next step is to prepare these little tabs. And they are super simple. I left them off of, let's see. Oh, I remember, I left, these were the Seashore Drive tabs that were supposed to go on this bag. And I accidentally used the tabs that were supposed to go on my Emma bag on my Seashore Drive. And so I think that's why I didn't put these on. But I've got a set that is ready to go for this bag. And then I've also got some just to show you. So it's just a, let's see, 2½ inch by 3 inch rectangle, and you fold them both sides to the middle and fold them again. And you'll do the same thing with the other one, and then you just stitch a little bit on each side of each of the tabs. So I'm going to use these tabs for this bag, and I will go ahead and sew these, and I'll be using these tabs for this other bag. Okay, so after you've made the tab, if you want to add a D-ring, and some people like to do that because they can clip onto a keychain or something, you would want to put a D-ring inside of one of these tabs now at this point and just kind of baste it. I'm not going to be using a D-ring for my bag, so if you're not going to do that, you can just baste them as they are. But this is the point where you would want to put in that D-ring if you're going to use one on one or both sides. Okay, I'm using a by Annie white zipper. The pattern tells you that you need an 11 or 14 inch zipper, which you'll notice is quite a bit longer than your pouch. But it's really helpful to have your zipper longer so that you just don't have to worry about it. And you'll trim off the extra zipper anyway at the end, so it doesn't have to be an exact match. What you're going to do first is you're going to line your zipper right sides together. And I like using little Wonder Clips. The other thing I like about using the by Annie zippers is that you don't need a zipper foot. And so it makes it super easy. And no pinning, I just put a few clips in. And I'm going to go over and I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam right there. And I will come right back after I do that. Okay, so I sewed that with a 1/4 inch seam, and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to just kind of fold that over and finger press, and then you're going to want to go and just sew again. I actually do it from the back side and to where the zipper tape is going to cover your seam. and just kind of enclose that on the inside of your pouch. So I'm going to go ahead and go do that now. And then right after that, I will do the same thing, and I will sew the right side of the other side of the zipper tape to the other top side of the bag, and do kind of that same process, opening the zipper as I need to do that. So I'm going to go sew that, and then I will come back with the zipper attached. Okay, I wanted to just pop back over and show you what this looks like. So you can see there's a seam right there that I've sewn, and on the back side it has almost fully encased those raw edges from the back side of the pouch. And so what I'm going to do next, and I just like to line everything up, make sure my sides are lined up. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to take the Wonder Clips, and I'm going to go 1/4 inch seam again, and then I will open my zipper and do the same thing that I did on this side, and be right back. Okay, so the zipper is fully attached. The next step that you do, and you make sure that the zipper is at the halfway point in your pouch before you do this, is you take it over to the sewing machine, and if you can tell, I've sewed a line just right across the end of the zipper right there from the pouch to the other side of the pouch, and there's a machine sewing line that goes right across the zipper. I'm going to cut the excess zipper tape off right there. And I will do the same thing on the other side, and you can see that I've already sewn across the zipper, and I'm just going to cut that extra zipper tape off. So, and when their pieces are really small like this, I will just throw them away. Sometimes when they're, 6 inches or bigger, I will keep them. I might be able to use it in another project. Okay. The next step is when we cut those squares out earlier, those were for the box corners at the top of the pouch, but now we need to make the box corners at the bottom of the pouch. And that's where, when I told you that you could fold it and press it earlier, that's where that's helpful. I just have been checking to make sure that I've got it folded in half. It's been pretty easy. And this time it's just a touch different. Instead of cutting out a square that's 1/4 of an inch, 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, you are going to cut a rectangle that is 1 1/4 of an inch from the seam edge, which will be the side seams, and just 1 inch from the bottom edge. So it's going to be a rectangle, and we're going to go 1 inch from the bottom and 1 1/4 from the side, and we're going to do the same thing. Draw that line, and 1 inch from the bottom, 1 1/4. Let's see, yeah, and 1. Okay. And same thing, we're going to cut that out. And this time you're cutting them out together where you've drawn. So you have a kind of a rectangle. Okay, and those pieces can be thrown away. The next step is to stitch both of your side seams 1/4 of an inch right here. And so I'm just going to go and do that and come back. Oh, and also after you stitch the 1/4 of an inch seam, the pattern recommends that you zigzag both sides, and that's just to keep the raw edges from coming out. Okay, so I've sewn both of those side seams, and then I also zigzagged on both sides. I think you can tell. So I've got that side seam completely finished off on both sides of the bag. The next thing we're going to do is box these bottom corners. And the way that you do that is you just kind of fold that up to where those edges meet and it's flat. And I like to line this seam up, make sure it's, because I did the patchwork, I can see where the middle of the bottom of the bag is, and I can make sure that that's lined up. And if you didn't do patchwork, you can just look at the line that you pressed. And I'm going to wonder clip this. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, and the pattern tells you to sew it from one direction and then flip it over and sew a 1/4 inch seam again from the other direction. And I think that's a really helpful tip, because that helps make sure that you really have encased all of your raw edges and gotten the seam. And the other thing I do at this point is I look at which way I've folded this seam. So I'm going to consider that's going to be the back, and I'm going to make sure that the seam on the other side is folded the same way. Make sure that that lines up in the middle. I'm going to wonder clip it. So I'm going to go and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch from each side. So make 2 seams on each end, one on the top and one from the bottom. And then after I do that on both of them, I'm also going to zigzag this part of the bag. So you just want to get rid of as many of the raw edges as you can. Okay, so the bottom of the bag is now finished on both sides. I like to just kind of trim as many of my little loose threads as I can. So I sewed a 1/4 inch, I turned it over and I sewed a 1/4 inch, and then I zigzagged. And I did the same thing on the other side, a 1/4 inch seam across the bottom, turned it over, sewed it again, and then zigzagged. And you can kind of move your zipper all the way to where you've sewn across. It shouldn't come off. I like to be a little careful anyway, but I like to pull out the corners on both sides and make sure that I caught all of the fabric, which I did. So, and I've checked it on both sides. And now we're going to do the same exact thing up in the top, but this time we're going to add our little tabs. Okay, just a note, I'm not using a D-ring, but if you are using a D-ring, you will want to make sure that the first tab that you put on is the one without the D-ring. And it is going to go on the, when you have the zipper in the middle of the bag, it's going to go on the side where the zipper is closed. So tab without the D-ring is going to go here. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to fold this. I'm going to make sure that that seam, I'm going to cut these threads so they don't get in my way up there. I'm going to make sure that that seam is folded the same way that it is at the bottom of the bag. So the seam's going to fold, the middle of the seam is going to line up with the middle of the zipper, and I'm going to also stick that tab without the D-ring on this side. And I'm going to make sure that all of those layers are lined up, and I will use my clips. It's so much easier to use these clips than to use pins. And I'm going to do actually the same thing that I did on the bottom, a 1/4 inch, flip it over, sew a 1/4 inch, and then zigzag it. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. And if you are using a D-ring, this is where the D-ring will go. I'm not using the D-ring, but, and the same thing, you're going to check that all of the sides, the seams are pressed in the same direction. I'm going to line that up. And I'm just going to go ahead and clip it and sew them both at the same time and come back. And you just have to make sure that that zipper is halfway open. If the zipper were all the way closed, you might have a hard time getting into your bag after it's sewn. But I will go over there and I will sew these 2 seams, and we'll come back and look at our finished bag. Okay, back from the sewing machine again, and it's all complete. I've sewn both of those seams. I did it from both sides. I really like that tip. I've sewn a lot of bags, and I've never seen that tip before in a pattern, and I just love it because there's really no way that you can be sure that you're getting it completely straight. And so I love having that extra little safety measure that everything has been sewn. So at this point, I just slide the zipper over a little bit further to give myself room to turn it inside out. And all the seams are completely encased, and you can just kind of push out the bottom corners. And then the same thing at the top, you'll just kind of push out those top corners. At that point, you can take it over to the ironing board if you want, but with the Soft and Stable, they really do kind of just have a really nice shape on their own. And I just wanted to show you too, this is the difference in the end, because I did that straight line quilting and this one doesn't have it. So I definitely do like this quilting option. And I will be making myself a cute little zipper pull like I did for my Seashore Drive version for this bag, and really just hope you'll enjoy making some of these fun little bags with the free pattern from Moda Fabrics. Okay, that's it for today's pouch tutorial. This is such a fun project. I think I'm going to be making several more and using them for Christmas gifts. And it's just a really great, quick, fast, and fun project. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much for stopping by.